Usually I go out on assignment carrying a notebook, but recently I left our newsroom in Times Square carrying a borrowed kayak and headed to the west side of Manhattan for a little journey to explore the Hudson River. I'm Corey Kilgannon with the New York Times. In 1609, Henry Hudson made his now famous exploration of the river we now call the Hudson. I'm going to try to replicate Henry Hudson's voyage. I'm going to start in this kayak, and then I'm just going to head north and try to hitchhike rides with as many different vessels I can find up the river. Now, I'm not a kayaker, and I had certainly never paddled in the Hudson before, but I'll tell you, it was a lot of fun, very exciting. I was cruising uptown with the incoming tide. I barely had to paddle. Now, I live on the west side of Manhattan, but I never really looked at it from the water. There was a lot of flotsam and jetsam along the coast, but the water was pretty clean in the middle, where I ran into the Heath family, whose 2 children were swimming off the boat. Hey, what do you think of my idea? I want to go all the way up the Hudson River to Albany.
Sounds awesome.
Awesome.
You think it's foolish?
No.
No.
A hot dog vendor in Riverside Park refused to take my money and threw me a hot dog. Much needed fuel for my journey. Later on, off the coast of Harlem, I hooked up with the Half Moon, a replica of the ship Henry Hudson used. This historic 3-masted vessel was heading upriver and agreed to let me aboard. The crew lashed my kayak to the deck and went back to climbing the rigging and furling and unfurling the sails. That's Captain Chip Reynolds, who sails his ship the Henry Hudson way. He wanted all the rigging and the ropes ship-shape, and he had his crew swabbing the deck. The sun was setting and we passed under the Tappan Zee Bridge and dropped anchor next to Hook Mountain near Nyack, not far from where Hudson also anchored. On day 2, we had breakfast on deck, and a local guy named Chris Vargo, who grew up fishing and hunting on the Hudson, was good enough to pick me up. It was goodbye to the Half Moon and on up the river.
Here the water's crystal clear, coming and pouring out of the Croton River. It's 10 times cleaner now than it was when I was a kid. And it's probably, it was cleaner when I was a kid than when my father was a kid.
At a marina in Newburgh, Lex Filipowski, a motivational speaker with a 15-foot jet boat, was happy to give a ride to me and Chris Vargo's father, John Vargo.
Right now we're at the Newburgh waterfront. Great places to eat and places to meet people. It's a great nightlife.
We knocked around the area of Beacon and Cold Spring, and I was really just blown away by the dramatic highlands that surrounded the river. It felt like a big mountain lake, a real change from the urban Hudson I was used to. We saw an island up ahead with an old crumbling castle on it, Bannerman's Island, where an arms dealer named Francis Bannerman once lived and warehoused his munitions. The steward of the island, Dave Lawrence, gave me a special tour inside the structures.
This is the entrance to the arsenal here on Bannerman, which is, I believe, 4 stories and a flat roof. And this level is where they stored the cannons. He had cannons from the Civil War here.
It struck me how much of a boater's paradise the river was up here, full of kayakers, tour boats, water skiers. We pulled up on Little Stony Point Beach, where I met 3 guys who had watched the river rebound from its polluted past.
I come here like every weekend all summer long for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Just to come down and relax and enjoy the view and the scenery and the clean water.
You couldn't go in the water 20 years ago.
What was it like?
This raw sewage all over the place.
That was probably 40 years ago.
Give and take, yeah.
Time marches on quick.
We ran into a guy named Walter Gershagen, who runs the local sea tow boat, monitoring radio rescue channels and helping out boaters in trouble.
This fella thinks he's out of gas. He's just floating in front of West Point.
Went down here past Rennerman's Arsenal and the Newburgh Beacon Bridge. Then we turned around and said, all right, let's go back.
With some gas from Walter, they were on their way. It was the end of my second day, and I worried that my supply of boat rides had dried up. But the next morning, we hit the jackpot. The jackpot was a 50-foot, 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom yacht with a living room, spiral staircase, and all the amenities you could want. The owner and captain was a retired corporate executive named Steve Martin. He even let me drive, and I'll tell you, those diesels packed some power, a far cry from my kayak. I got dizzy from the control panel with its sonar and radar, depth finders, and every other navigational tool you could want. So Captain Steve took the wheel up on the high deck, and we saw a river that was much more narrow and pristine. Plenty of interesting little villages, boat clubs. There were aging, neglected structures and little tucked-away beaches. This is the beauty of the Hudson. Its personality changes dramatically every few miles. At a marina in New Baltimore, we met a couple that had come up with a pretty nifty Hudson River business plan. They built a floating hot dog cart named after their dog, Rascal.
What's most people's reaction when they pull up, when they see it?
What an awesome idea. I can't believe you did this. How did you do this? One lady said, can you build me one?
Just down the road, I met a guy named Dallas Trombley, pursuing his own dream.
Started off as a big adventure, and now it's almost become like an obsession, almost an albatross.
Dallas has been working for years to build a homemade raft that could take him down the river to New York City.
A 25-foot paddle wheel houseboat is what I keep calling it. It's biodiesel powered. The goal the whole time has been not to use any fossil fuels. I guess just a lot of my friends are more the poets kind of people and not really engineering kind of people.
This is a mixture of both, though. This is a dreamer's project.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
I told Dallas I was just as obsessed to make it upriver to Albany, to find where Hudson ended his journey. We stopped at Scarano Boat Builders in Albany, where Rick Scarano told us we'd have to keep going if we wanted to find the spot where Hudson found the river too shallow and called it quits 400 years ago.
I imagine it was a little further north than this because the river is pretty naturally deep for a little bit yet.
It turns out that spot was at what is now the Federal Dam at Troy, just north of downtown Albany. Searching for a vantage point, we finally came to a dead end and saw a faint path down to the river's edge. And there it was, the end of the navigable Hudson, both for me and 400 years ago for Henry Hudson.